The world is full of mysteries, strange occurrences that defy logic and reason, but few are as unsettling, as deeply unnerving as the idea of doppelgängers. Imagine coming face to face with yourself, an exact replica staring back with an unknown intent. It's the stuff of nightmares, a chilling glimpse into a reality we'd rather not acknowledge. Tonight we delve into the dark heart of this phenomenon. We'll explore three true stories, three terrifying accounts of individuals who encountered their doppelgängers only to be left with more questions than answers. Their experiences will leave you questioning the nature of identity, the fragility of reality, and the chilling possibility that we are not alone even within ourselves. Are you ready to face the unknown? Our first story takes us to a small, quiet town nestled amidst rolling hills and whispering forests, a place where time seems to stand still. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name, where life moves at a slower, more predictable pace, or so it seems on the surface. Sarah, a young woman in her early 20s, always felt a strange connection to this town, a sense of belonging that ran deeper than mere familiarity, almost as if the town itself was a part of her. She'd grown up hearing stories from her grandmother, tales of a family curse, of a dark reflection that haunted their lineage, passed down through generations. Sarah, of course, dismissed them as old wives' tales, the ramblings of a bygone era, stories meant to scare children into behaving. But deep down, a seed of unease had been planted, a flicker of doubt that refused to be extinguished, no matter how much she tried to ignore it. One particularly stormy night, as Sarah sat alone in her grandmother's old house, the power flickered and died, plunging her into darkness, leaving her with only her thoughts. She reached for her phone, her pulse quickening as a cold draft snaked through the room, sending shivers down her spine. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the old tarnished mirror hanging on the wall, casting eerie shadows. And there, staring back at her, was another Sarah, an image that shouldn't have been there. Same hair, same eyes, same hesitant smile, mirroring her every move. But this Sarah, the one in the mirror, her eyes were different, unsettlingly so. They were cold, empty, devoid of the warmth and life that Sarah knew in her own. A stark contrast that sent chills through her. Terror, raw and primal, seized Sarah's heart, gripping her with an intensity she had never felt before. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't tear her gaze from the apparition in the mirror, paralyzed by fear. The image lingered for what felt like an eternity. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it was gone, leaving only her reflection. The mirror was once again reflecting her own terrified face, the storm outside raging in a symphony of wind and rain, as if echoing her inner turmoil. Shaking and breathless, Sarah stumbled back, her mind reeling from what she had seen, trying to make sense of it all. Was it a trick of the light? A mere illusion? A figment of her imagination fueled by her grandmother's stories? Or perhaps something more? Or was it something more sinister? A glimpse into a dark and twisted reflection of herself, a part of the curse she had always dismissed. Our second story takes us to a bustling city, a concrete jungle teeming with life, where anonymity is a comfort, a shield against the overwhelming tide of humanity. In this vast sea of faces, it's easy to get lost, to blend in, to become just another part of the urban landscape. But even in the heart of millions, some secrets refuse to remain hidden, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Mark, a driven young professional, always prided himself on his rationality, his ability to navigate the world with logic and reason as his compass. He believed that every problem had a solution, every mystery an explanation. But his carefully constructed reality began to crumble one ordinary evening as he walked home from work, the familiar streets taking on an eerie quality. The streetlights cast long, dancing shadows as Mark made his way through the familiar streets, their flickering light adding to the growing sense of unease. He was lost in thought, replaying a tense meeting with a client when a movement at the edge of his vision caught his eye, pulling him back to the present. He turned, expecting to see another late-night commuter rushing home, but instead he saw himself, a perfect mirror image, standing across the street. Standing across the street, partially obscured by the shadows, was a figure that mirrored his every move, an unsettling doppelganger. Mark stopped, his breath catching in his throat, and the figure stopped too, as if mocking his every action. It was dressed exactly like him, right down to the slightly crooked tie he'd been meaning to fix all day. A chill ran down Mark's spine, a prickle of unease spreading through him like a virus infecting his thoughts. He couldn't explain it, but he knew with a certainty that defied logic that this was wrong, deeply, unsettlingly wrong, as if reality itself had been twisted. He took a step back, and the figure mimicked his movement. Its eyes, dark and unblinking, locked onto his, reflecting his fear. Mark's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of fear against his ribs, each thump echoing his growing terror. He turned and quickened his pace, his mind racing, trying to rationalize what he was seeing, but finding no logical explanation. But the feeling of dread, of being watched, of being stalked by something he couldn't comprehend, only intensified, wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. He risked a glance over his shoulder, and there, just a few paces behind him, was the figure maintaining its eerie pursuit. It hadn't gained on him, but it hadn't fallen behind either, keeping a perfect, unnerving distance. It was as if it were tethered to him, connected by an invisible thread of fear and unease, an unbreakable bond. Mark broke into a run, his briefcase banging against his leg, his lungs burning with exertion, each breath a struggle. He didn't dare look back, but he could feel its presence, relentless and unwavering, like a shadow clinging to his heels, refusing to let go. He burst onto the relative safety of a crowded street, his body a symphony of adrenaline and fear, his mind reeling. He risked another glance back, but the figure was gone, vanished into the sea of faces. Had it been real, or had his mind, stressed and overworked, conjured up a phantom to torment him? The question lingered, unanswered, as he tried to make sense of the impossible. Our final story takes us to a remote village, nestled high in the mountains, a place where ancient traditions held sway and the line between myth and reality blurred with the mists that clung to the peaks. This village, shrouded in mystery, was a place where the past and present coexisted in an eerie harmony. Maria, a woman hardened by a life of solitude and hardship, had always been skeptical of the stories whispered around crackling fires, tales of restless spirits and creatures that lurked in the shadows. She dismissed them as mere folklore, the product of overactive imaginations. But her skepticism wavered one chilling evening as she made her way home from the village well, the air growing colder with each passing moment. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, as Maria walked along the winding path. The beauty of the sunset was a stark contrast to the unease that was slowly creeping into her heart. The air was heavy with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, a familiar comfort that had always brought her a sense of peace. Yet tonight, that comfort seemed elusive, slipping through her fingers like the mist around her. But tonight, the silence was different. It was a silence that seemed to echo with unspoken words and hidden secrets. It was heavier, more oppressive, as if the very mountains were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. Maria paused, her hand instinctively reaching for the worn silver crucifix she wore around her neck. It was a small comfort, a tangible connection to her faith in the face of the unknown. She scanned the surrounding woods, her eyes searching for the source of her unease. The shadows seemed to dance and shift, playing tricks on her mind. And then she saw her, a figure that should not have been there, standing at the edge of the trees, partially obscured by the gathering shadows, was a figure that sent a jolt of fear through Maria's heart. It was her, an impossible reflection, Same weathered face, same calloused hand, same shawl draped over her shoulders. It was as if she was looking into a mirror, but one that showed a different reality. But the Maria standing in the shadows, her eyes were different. They held a depth of sadness and weariness that Maria had never seen in her own reflection. They were filled with a sadness, a weariness that Maria had never seen in her own reflection. It was as if this other Maria had lived 1,000 lifetimes of sorrow. Maria froze, her breath catching in her throat, her grip tightening on the crucifix. Fear paralyzed her, rooting her to the spot. She tried to speak, to call out to the figure, but her voice died in her throat. The words refused to come. The figure took a step forward, and Maria could see the flicker of recognition, of something akin to fear in its eyes. It was as if the figure was just as confused and frightened. It was as if the figure, her reflection, was as startled by the encounter as she was. Two beings, two realities colliding in a moment of shared fear. For a long moment they simply stared at each other, two reflections of the same soul, separated by an invisible barrier of fear and disbelief. Neither could move, neither could speak. Then, as silently as it had appeared, the figure turned and melted back into the shadows, leaving Maria alone on the path, her heart pounding, her mind reeling. The encounter left her shaken to her core. She stumbled home, the image of her other self seared into her mind, a chilling reminder that even in the most isolated corners of the world, we are never truly alone. The experience would haunt her for the rest of her days, a silent reflection of her deepest fears. 3 stories, 3 chilling encounters with the unknown. Sarah, Mark, and Maria, each faced with a terrifying reflection of themselves, a doppelganger that challenged their perceptions of reality and left them grappling with the unsettling possibility that something sinister lurks just beyond our understanding. The question remains: are doppelgangers simply tricks of the light, figments of our imaginations, or do they represent something more profound, a glimpse into a hidden world that mirrors our own? Have you ever encountered your doppelganger? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you dare to delve further into the darkness, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more terrifying tales from the shadows.